Hey everyone, and welcome back to Gods, Monsters, and Drama. I'm Ruby, and thank you so much for joining me today. If you listened to our introduction episode, you remember that we talked a little bit about what Greek mythology actually is, why these stories are still so popular today, and what you can expect from this podcast. But today we finally started the story, and we are starting at the very beginning, before Zeus, before Mountain Olympus, before all the family drama, basically. Well, actually, the family drama starts pretty quickly. But before any of that existed, there was only one thing: chaos. Now, when we hear the word chaos today, we usually think of complete disorder, maybe your room after stressful week, maybe exam season. Anyway, but the Greek chaos wasn't exactly disorder. It was emptiness, a void, basically nothing. Just picture nothing. Just endless emptiness stretching in every direction. And honestly, that's kind of terrifying. Imagine opening your eyes and seeing absolutely nothing, no sound, no color, just darkness. That's where Greek mythology begins. But chaos didn't remain empty forever. Eventually, something emerged from it, and that was Gaia. Gaia is one of the most important figures in all Greek mythology. She wasn't simply the goddess of earth, she was the earth. That thing is just wild to me, okay? Like, imagine the mountains, the forests, the rivers, absolutely everything. In many myths, Gaia is considered the mother of life itself. And honestly, if Greek mythology had a family tree, which it absolutely does, and its complete nightmare, Gaia would be near the very top. If you're Percy Jackson fan, you probably heard Gaia's name before, and if you have, you already know she's kind of big deal. No spoilers for anyone who haven't read the books, but let's just say Gaia becomes very important much later in the story. One of the things I love about mythology is seeing how characters that seem small at first become incredibly important later on. Now, Gaia wasn't the only primordial, sorry, being. And before we continue, let's quickly talk about what primordial, I'm so sorry, I'm butchering that word, but I can't pronounce it, actually means. The primordials, sorry, were the first beings in existence. But unlike Zeus or Poseidon, they weren't gods who ruled over something. Jesus. They were the thing itself. Gaia wasn't ruling the earth, she was the earth. For example, Nyx wasn't ruling the night, she was the night. Uranus wasn't ruling the sky, he was the sky. Basically, these weren't just powerful gods, they were foundations of reality itself. Alongside Gaia came several other primordial beings. There was Tartarus, the deep abyss beneath the earth, which we mentioned in the last episode. There was Nyx, the goddess of night. There was Erebus, who represented darkness. And there was Eros, connected to attraction, creation, and the force that bring things together. Slowly, the universe began beginning to take a shape, piece by piece, but Gaia still felt alone. So she created Uranus, the sky. Everything above the earth, the clouds, the heavens, all of it. Basically, Gaia was like so alone and lonely, she decided to create herself a man, and I completely, understand her. And together, Gaia and Uranus became one of the first couples in Greek mythology. Now, if you never read mythology before, this sounds lovely. Unfortunately, this is the Greek mythology we're talking about. Nobody is allowed to have a normal family. Gaia and Uranus had many children together. Among them were Titans, and the Titans are incredibly important. In fact, they're so important that entire books, games, and movies have been inspired by them. That is just crazy. And a lot of people, when they hear the word Titan, immediately think, oh, they're definitely villain. But that's not really accurate. The Titans were basically the generation of the gods that ruled before Zeus and Olympians. Think of them as the old rulers of the universe. And honestly, most people think Greek mythology begins with Zeus, which is not really correct. But Zeus is actually very late to the story. Right now, Zeus doesn't exist. Poseidon or Hades or Olympus, like basically, they're far away from all of this, okay? We're literally watching the universe being built from scratch. If Greek mythology was a TV show, we're currently watching the pilot episode. Some of the titans would become incredibly important. For example, Oceanus was associated with the Great World River, and many others. For example, Hyperion was connected to heavenly light, Themis represented divine order and justice, Rhea would eventually become one of the most important mothers in mythology. And then there was Cronus. Remember that name, you're gonna hear it a lot, but later on. But the Titans were the only children Gaia and Uranus had. There were also the Cyclops. Yes, the giant one-eyed creatures. And honestly, if I ever saw a Cyclops walking toward me, I would have immediately turned around and walk in the opposite direction. But like, not today. Also, there were other creatures. For example, Hecatoncheires. By the way, that word is terrible to pronounce, so I pronounced it once and never again. And somehow these things were even stranger. Each one had 100 hands and 50 heads. How how did anyone come up with that? That is just ridiculous. Yeah, basically that sounds less like a child and more like something from Nightmare. Unfortunately, Uranus wasn't exactly winning any Father of the Year awards. He looked at some of his children and decided he didn't like them. He was like, they need to go. Especially the Cyclopses and Hecatochores. Hate the name. Instead of accepting them, he imprisoned them deep within Gaia. Now let's just take a moment to appreciate how terrible this idea is. First of all, that horrible thing to do. Second, Gaia was their mother. And she was absolutely furious, obviously. Imagine me forced to watch your children suffer while being unable to help them. Great. Gaia wanted revenge. She wanted Uranus punished, so she went to her children and asked for help. Most of them were afraid, which is honestly understandable. Uranus ruled the heavens. Standing against him wasn't exactly the safe career choice, but one Titan stepped forward, and that was our guy, Kronos. Hell yeah. Unlike his brothers and sisters, Kronos wasn't afraid. Gaia saw potential in him, so she gave him a plan, a weapon, an opportunity. Together, they would challenge the ruler of heavens himself, and trust me, the things are about to get messy. But before we finish today's episode, here's the fun fact. The word Titan is still used today to describe something incredibly powerful. You hear it in movies, books, games, sports, and all kinds of other stories. That's how influential Greek mythology still is thousands of years later. And honestly, we're only just getting started. Thank you so much for listening to Gods, Monsters, and Drama. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow the podcast and come back next Sunday for a brand new episode. Next time, we'll talk about Kronos, his rebellion against Uranus, an event that changed the future of the entire universe. Trust me, the drama is just getting started. Until next time, I'm Ruby and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.